All right, everyone. Hillary Clinton talking about the 2020 Democratic field, which right now it's literally like a clown car. It's like, how many more people can you stuff in? Biden still technically hasn't even fully announced, and looking at his wavering numbers, maybe he won't bother. I think one of the polls had him only at 26, which usually it's around 30. So that wouldn't be good news for him. And Sanders and Kamala Harris, actually, it's funny. Virtually all of the people at the top have slid down, and some of the this third and second tier people have risen up, so that now you've actually got technically like six potentially viable candidates. It is one hell of a field, and really, when the debates come around, it's like, what is going to be the actual polling cutoff in order for them to actually get onto the debate stage? Like, how many people can they reasonably accommodate in a couple hours' time and give anyone at least one question? It's going to be insane. It's going to be a freak show in the debates, by the way. Clinton is saying, well, I'm pleased by the field. I like the candidates. She's not choosing anyone yet. Now, of course, who's the Clinton choice? It's Kamala Harris. Fairly clearly, if she was going to choose anyone to carry on, it'd be her, because again, Kamala Harris, she has that past where she was a hell-bent prosecutor, throwing people in prison for truancy and drug possession. She was a hardliner. She's a hard ass, basically. But she's rebranded herself the way Clinton did. Clinton, another, basic super predators, tough on crime, hard ass, basically corporate hack sellout, who at the time, seemed more viable. Maybe back in 2008. Clinton is basically sitting it out as far as giving an endorsement. I have to hazard a guess. What I would say is that nobody wants her endorsement. The fact that she's pleased by the Democratic field should not be something that the Democrats take solace in. If you're looking at a field and Hillary Clinton says, yeah, this is pretty good, did you see her 2016 campaign? So you know that her ability to understand political strategy is not actually that great. It's interesting that she's been a step or two from the presidency on two different occasions and yet has such bad strategic skills. Because mainly it was Bill, basically, that ran the show on that side. He was the charismatic sort of hip personality. Clinton is more the behind-the-scenes person that stabs you in the back. She's the one that looks at the books and sees who owes what. She's the mafioso. And so Bill Clinton got all of his power from Hillary Clinton. Oh, he married well. They have a frigid marriage. I doubt they even, have screwed in the last 20 years, but they love it anyway. Somewhere deep inside their sick and twisted hearts, there's a very, very deep love for one another. I think between the Clintons, it's actually quite astonishing when you think about it. Then again, is it different from the show marriage of JFK and Jackie, considering the fact that they slept in separate beds too? It's like, yeah, they produced kids, but they both had their own liaisons, so to speak. I'm sure that Jackie Kennedy did too. They just kept it more hush-hush at the time. JFK was voracious, so it was kind of difficult when there's a never-ending parade of young women going in and out of the White House at all hours. But Clinton loves the field. Okay, who specifically do you like, Miss Clinton? Oh, yeah, I just like them all. She doesn't want to make a choice. They don't want to be her choice. If you look at the field, though, right now, it's beginning to become more malleable. What you've got is that the initial star power of like a Sanders or Biden has begun to wear off, and you've got some other people that before they're 2 or 3%, and they've risen up some into that level of viability. The cutoff is like maybe 5 or 6%. If you're below that for any real length of time, you start to become non-viable. Warren, by the way, is hazardously close to hitting that mark. She was initially at like 14 or 15. Now she's slid down to the mid-single digits. She's approaching that threshold. Kamala Harris has slid back actually a little bit, which is why, like, if she had shot out of a cannon and roared to life and become like, I am the person to be, like if she were where Biden was, I have no doubt that Hillary Clinton would specifically say nice things about her quite often. But the thing is, Clinton wants to have favors, and so she's going to wait until the last minute. Basically, let the candidates destroy one another. Get rid of half of them and then see who's still viable and who's just basically not in it to win it, but just in it to spin it, and put a little message out there. Maybe sell some books, inject a wedge issue like O'Malley tried to do in 2016. Somebody running at 2 or 3%, but still sticks it out despite, never getting above that level in a state. Now, he was just there. Anytime questioned about anything, he immediately went back to the topic of green energy. He was a single-issue candidate who wanted to be there for some limelight, and again, to sell books and have some name recognition, have some fun. Jim Webb was kind of like that. I liked Jim Webb, but he was never a viable candidate because he was running against two people that were clearly well ahead of him in terms of every possible opportunity to fundraise. They had the backing of the party, at least in Clinton's case, more. This time around, Bernie Sanders now has slumped a little bit. Like, he was a close number 2. Now he's sort of, even though Biden has fallen off a little bit, Bernie Sanders' drop was more precipitous. It's looking like his campaign might actually end up endangered. The problem for him is that I can see there must be some sort of fairly low hard cap on the support that he can gain because of his ideological beliefs and his embracing of the term socialism. So he's not going to be like the Clinton people and the Sanders people fucking hate one another. Even like the Warren people, it's funny. I saw fairly recently they were even Warren fans. I was sort of going around Twitter to these different political circles. You can penetrate your echo chamber if you try. And there were a bunch of Warren fans talking about, maybe other Warren fans should fucking tone it down a little bit. Yeah, I'm with her, I'm going to vote for her, but Jesus Christ, some of this is like totally toxic. It is true. Her hardcore fan base is incredibly, they hate men for the most part. They're kind of Clintonian. They despise Bernie Sanders. It's like the Clinton crowd on steroids. If you saw some of the shit that was posted, like on Being Liberal or salon posts on Twitter or something like that, Facebook and Twitter, in the last election, there was a lot of toxicity among the Clinton fans. They desperately hated the idea of even one person deciding to sit it out and not vote for her, enraged them. Like, the very suggestion would get them red in the face. It was interesting, actually, watching the bitterness. Clinton likes the 2020 field. Well, then it's a shitty field. I'm still not seeing any particular standouts. Look, the closest thing the Democrats right now have to a viable standout is Buttigieg. And I hate to say it, but there are probably enough religious people in the party to keep, I think, an openly gay man, if I remember correctly, from becoming the nominee. Yeah, very touching. He'll end up in the VP slot. Him or Beto, somebody like that is probably going to end up the VP. The Democrats want someone other than a white male to be the standard bearer, other than the corporate libs that really, they just kind of gravitate towards Biden. They can't back Kamala. They can't back Sanders. They're too socialistic. So really that leaves them with Biden, and then he'd have to choose one of those far-left people, or a minority, more specifically. Or if it's not Biden, you would have to have somebody like that, a Hickenlooper, a Buttigieg, or a Beto as the VP, basically, in order not to frighten more of the business Dems. The problem is then you probably end up alienating some of the progressive bloc voters who'll say, why is there a white male one heartbeat away from the presidency? It'll be very funny to see. And it'll get, trust me, that rhetoric will be antagonized in part by Trump fans. Absolutely, because there's something to be gained. Yeah, this is going to be all sorts of propaganda flying around. And Hillary Clinton is the worst judge of character. Look, if I were running a political campaign and Hillary Clinton said, oh yeah, that Styx Hexenhammer, I like the cut of his jib, I would just give up the next day and say, fuck it. There wouldn't be a reason to continue running. For one thing, you'd lose half of your support, especially if you're like a maverick. All the so-called outsiders, and like a Gabbard or something, that would be it would be totally poison their campaign if they ever got that endorsement. By the way, Gabbard doesn't even really appear on the polls anymore, despite the fact that she was ahead of some of these others that are listed now, like even a Klobuchar. They kicked her off the polling. They are treating her unfairly. Again, I wouldn't vote for her. I'm not taken in by the sort of cult of personality around her, while this young, surfy female, this sort of bullshit, I'm not taken in, but she is being mistreated. They are absolutely shafting Gabbard at this point. I do kind of feel sorry for her fans, because, like, you'd have to go to the polling firms and show them some numbers that they don't have, I guess. Say, look, she's got 3 or 4%. If you actually ask people. Doesn't that put her ahead of half the people that appear on RCP? Absolutely it does. That's the whole point. That's about all. Peace out.